One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. We're doing things a little bit different today, and I'm going to be kind of vulnerable with you here. Now, I've been very vulnerable on the podcast many, many times over, right? I've shared messy behind the scenes stuff that I know y'all eat up. Y'all love that. That's probably why you're here and you keep coming back every single week. By the way, thank you so much if you've been listening to this show and you're loving what you're hearing and you're sharing it with other people. I do so much appreciate it. But I wanted to share a different side of what it feels like to be uncomfortable because you're growing and you're getting to the next level. And today's episode isn't going to be all about just getting started. It's going to be really targeting the people in the audience, the podcasters that have been doing this for a while. And you're like, I got this figured out. What's the next step? So we're going to talk about how to know if your podcast is ready for the next level. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, so I hope that you've pulled up a chair or you're comfortable folding laundry or running or walking the dog, like whatever it is that you're doing. I hope that you've kind of settled into the mind space, head space, whatever that phrase is. You know what I'm talking about. Like you're getting comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, because we're talking about getting out of your comfort zone today. Because I can tell you that I've had this restlessness over the last few months. Like as of me recording this, we're getting into September and like the kids are in school. Like it's been a whole new season of life for me personally, because our youngest son went to kindergarten, and now like for 5 days a week, the kids are at school, where previously I had our youngest son, he was at home with me Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then he would go to like a Mother's Day out situation twice a week. So I've really been doing my business and the podcast and YouTube. Everything's been kind of part-time, where I do it here and there on the days that my son was home with me. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's like I was balls to the wall. Like, I'm going to do everything that I can on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to get all the things done, so it's been like a part-time thing. But now that we've settled into a routine and I'm working more consistently, and I know kind of the vision for where I want to take my business and my podcasting journey, my content creation journey, and just what I see for Profit Media and everything in the future, I got to tell you, I'm a little uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that because it's a bad thing. I'm saying it because I haven't felt this way since I pivoted to podcasting back in 2019. So I'm not going to tell you the whole story. If you've been around here, you know it. But for those of you, if you're brand new to this community, I was on a different path. I had a totally different podcast. I was speaking to mostly female entrepreneurs about female entrepreneur stories. And then I was challenged by my mentor. I've talked about Amy Porterfield. She's one of my mentors. She challenged me. We had a coaching call, and I actually have a YouTube video I'll link to where you can actually watch part of our call, where she challenged me to go all in on podcasting. And I just remember this being, I was terrified. I was so terrified because the idea of going all in on one thing really scared me, because I was like, I couldn't see what that future would look like. I couldn't see all the things that would happen if I chose this path to go down podcasting. But now, 2 years later, and we're on the other side of that fear, of that uncertainty. Y'all, I wanted to share a few things with you today, because I'm looking at the goals and the dreams that I wanted to accomplish having gone down the path of podcasting. I have accomplished most of them this year. And I can say that with confidence because my biggest goals weren't to be on the biggest podcasts that are out there and get in front of like, oh, I want to be on Amy Porterfield's podcast, and I want to be on Pat Flynn's podcast, and I want to be on the all these huge podcasts. Y'all should see me right now. I'm in my office. Like, you can see me. I just had a realization that you can't see me. I'm not on camera, but I'm standing up today to record because I knew I'd need the energy to get through this, because I have all this nervous energy, because y'all, this is vulnerable for me. To tell you that I'm in this like season of restlessness of trying to figure out what my next move is. Like, I am just going, like, my hands are up in the air. I'm going all over the place, but I hit some incredible milestones in 2021. And a few of those are speaking at PodFest. So I spoke at PodFest Global. They had a masterclass earlier this year. That was one of my big, like, oh, things are getting real. Like, I feel like things are starting to move in the right direction. Then I got invited to speak at Podcast Movement University. And I thought, oh my gosh, like Podcast Movement, that was the stage that I wanted to speak on whenever I started this whole journey. Like, that was in the cards for me. And I was like, this is going to happen. I'm going to make this happen. Then I was actually able to speak on the Podcast Movement stage in Nashville, which was just so freaking incredible. And then we have She Podcast coming up in October. I'm going to be going to Arizona to speak at She Podcast. Like, what is actually happening? Y'all, these are the biggest stages for the podcast industry. And I didn't just go and participate at these. I was speaking on stages. I am speaking on the stages that I wanted to speak on whenever I first said, I think I want to go into podcasting. So if you're wrestling with something right now, and the other one was Amy Porterfield's Momentum membership. Like, that was just like, it wasn't even anything I had on my radar. It wasn't even an option. I didn't even think of like, oh, I'm going to put that on my vision board. No, I didn't even ever imagine that I would be speaking to some of my peers, some of these people that I really look up to, and I'm teaching them. This was when the Apple Podcast changes were coming up, and I was asked to come in and talk about the new changes of the iOS and everything that was happening with Apple Podcasts in 2021. And I was just so humbled because I never in my wildest dreams would be thinking I'd be speaking on one of Amy Porterfield's stages to some of her members. So I'm just floored at what has happened in 2021, 2 years after I said, oh, I think I want to teach about podcasting. Because if you've been around here or you're brand new here and you're like, wait, Crystal, I thought you've been doing this for way longer. Y'all, I have not. I just started teaching podcasting, going all in. I've been podcasting since 2018, but I went all in 2019 and said, this is what I want to do. This is my time to go all in on this one thing that I'm so passionate about. And I so love helping people do this. So for those of you listening, if you are like, you've been doing your podcast for a while, maybe you've been doing your business for a while, and you're like, how do I know if it's time for me to take my podcast, take this journey and go to the next level? That is what I want to talk about today because I'm in it. Like I said, right before I started recording, I was having a moment of, I don't know what to talk about on today's episode. And y'all know me. Y'all know I have my content planned like way in advance. I'm like, okay, these are the content strategies, the content ideas. Like I'm the queen of content. I never run out of things to say. But the ideas that I had weren't sitting well with me because I knew I wanted to talk about taking things to the next level, even when you're uncomfortable, but I really didn't want to share it on a podcast. I thought maybe that's a good idea for an email. That's easy to like slip in there as like a social media post, and like have all the emojis and have all the things. I don't really have to talk about it because it's like, oh, share your experience, share the things. But that's when I know I need to talk about it because if I'm feeling this way about my own journey, there's a good chance there's a lot of you out there feeling the same way. So if you've been podcasting for 6 months, you've been podcasting for 12 months, you've been around here for a while doing your thing, and you're like, I feel like it's time, like I'm too comfortable. And this happens. This is actually what happened for me is I got really comfortable with my son going to school 2 days a week, and then I could just do my business part-time and then do the things. And then it was like the security blanket of saying, oh, I don't have time to work on that because I have my son. I don't have time for that. It was like it was pulled out from under me in the best possible way because now I do have time. And the question is, what do you want to focus on? It's a little scary, right? It's like, oh, well, you have all this extra time to devote to your business, but where do you put it? Where does that time and energy and effort go into? Because there's all these different aspects. If you're growing an online business or you're going down that rabbit hole of like, well, should I do more email marketing? Should I create more YouTube videos? Should I create more podcast episodes? Should I guest on more podcasts? Like, what does that actually look like? That's what we're going to talk about. But first, I wanted to share with you a little bit about the questions that I'm asking myself when I know it's time for me to go to the next level. And that is one, is it actually time?
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Is it time? And I mean that in looking at my personal life and my professional life. If you've been around here, you know, I always talk about schedules, planning, calendars, like all the things. And I like to be very aware of what's going on in my life. And here's a great example. I'm actually working on a course, like behind the scenes. I'm working on a more robust program for the advanced podcaster, right? Because we have profit podcasting. That's for people that are just getting started. They want to know the logistics of podcasting. How does it work? How do I launch it? How do I get it out into the world? That is the purpose of profit podcasting. But y'all are starting to ask me for what's next. I already started my podcast. What's next? And I have had that question asked so many times over the last 6 months that I can't ignore it anymore. Okay, so that is how I know the question, is it time? I know it's time for me because y'all are asking me for it. Y'all are asking me to level up, and I believe it's time for me to step up to the plate. So that's the question I want you to ask. If you're like, how do I know if I'm ready? Is it time? And you'll be the only one that can answer that question, right? I can't come to you and say, oh, you've been doing this for 6 months. It's time. Or you've been doing this for, 13 months. Exactly. It's time. I don't believe that there's a magic formula to tell you when you've done this many podcast episodes or you've been doing it for this long. It's time. It's going to be different for everybody. But I knew it was time for me because y'all are asking me for it. So it's time to level up for me. The next one is it experience? That's the other question. Do you feel like you have to have a certain level of experience before you can go to the next level? Now, this is what's been really interesting is because I struggle with imposter syndrome as well because I'm human and we all go through this self-doubt or just wondering like, am I ready? Is this the right thing? Is this the right time? And for me, I think that I've held back in a lot of different pivots that I could do in my business for the lack of experience. Now, it's not experience in the sense of podcasting and creating content. Like y'all know, I'm well-versed in the areas of creating content. But for me, I think that I've held back a little bit because I don't want people coming to me asking about things that I don't know about and having to tell them, I don't know that, go talk to this person. Like, I don't like the idea of someone coming to me and I have to send them to other people, but I got over that because that's ego, right? That's me not wanting to admit when I don't know something or not wanting to admit that I don't have all the answers and referring to someone else. But it's the truth. Y'all, I don't know. I can't, if you come to me and say, Crystal, how do I get $1 million brand deal with Nike or Coke? Like, what does that look like? I'm going to be like, I don't know how that works. I don't know. I don't know how you get, a 5-figure, a 6-figure deal with an ad sponsor because I haven't had that experience myself. And as stupid as that sounds, it's been something that has held me back because I am like, if I can't deliver all of the things to all of the podcasters, then why should I even try? Y'all, that's dumb. It's really dumb. And I'm calling myself out on it. Okay. So if this is you, if you're like, well, I don't have all of the experience, I don't have all of the knowledge about all the things. So what? I don't know many other podcasters that can say, like, y'all, at this point, I have published more than 700 podcast episodes in 3 years. I've published a lot of podcast episodes. I've published close to, I want to say, at least 2 to 250 YouTube videos. I have posted and published and created and edited and thought about and planned and strategized so much content. And this is where I feel super, super comfortable. So let's go back. So number one, the questions, I have 3 questions that I've been asking. Is it time? Is it experience? And is it a feeling? Right? These are the questions to ask. Like, how do you know if you're ready to go the next level? Is it a feeling? I believe that it is. I think for me, it's a combination of people asking me to level up and feeling like called to this higher standard, this higher version of myself, it is a feeling because it's uncomfortable. Okay? It's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. It feels like something that's like, oh, this is new, but it's exciting. It's also very exciting. So it's like a roller coaster of emotions for sure whenever you're getting ready to level up. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I've been thinking about like starting a membership. I've been thinking about creating a course for my audience. I've been thinking about launching an event. I've been thinking about writing a book. Like all of those things are all collectively incredible, but also they're a little scary. They're a little scary. If you've never done them before, if you've never done any of those things before and you're doing it for the first time, it's out of your comfort zone. It is a feeling. It is something that, like I said, this is why I won't be the person to tell you, oh, you've been doing this for 27 episodes. It's time. It's time for you to create your first course. It's time for you to guest on more podcasts. Like, I'm not going to be the one to tell you that because only you know when you're ready. And also, I mean, if the last, 18 months, 24 months, it feels like 7 years at this point, like of the ongoing of 2020 and all the mayhem we've been through, like the freedom to say it's not time right now. I have learned that over everything that we've all collectively been through in the last 18 months. And I have felt okay saying it's not time, it's not time, it's not time. But now I feel like it is time, and I've been using that as an excuse for the last few months. So, is it time? Is it experience? Is it a feeling? These are all the questions that I want you to ask to know if you're ready to go to the next level. And then you're like, well, Crystal, I know it's time for me to level up. I have been doing this. I'm really complacent. I'm chilling in my comfort zone, just all, happy and like, oh, everything's running smooth. What does it look like to get to the next level? What does it look like to take the next step? Because maybe you're someone you're like, I don't want to make more work for myself. I don't want to go off the deep end. I don't want to do a whole bunch of other fancy things that maybe you want to baby step into the next level, right? You don't want to say, okay, I climbed this mountain, I'm going to climb the next one. Maybe you're like, I just want to tiptoe and take a peek outside and see what is at the next level. So I wanted to give you a few options to consider if you know that going to the next level is something you're interested in. So number one is growing and scaling. Maybe you're like, I want to get more downloads on my podcast. I want to get my show in front of more people. I want to speak on more stages. I want just more visibility overall with my brand. Then growing and scaling could be the next level for you. Or, like I said, I mentioned guesting on other podcasts. Maybe that's what it is. Or guesting on other live shows. Like I have recently seen the power in collaborating with other YouTube people or people that are on Instagram that have large followings, and you're able to do IG lives or a YouTube live, like you're doing live streaming. Maybe that's a way for you to grow and scale your show. Maybe the next move for you is monetizing, like we talked about. If it's creating a course, a membership, writing a book, offering other types of products or services based around what your audience wants, monetizing is the thing that I get asked about the most. And I'll be really honest, most people that ask me about monetizing are not ready. They are not ready for it, but you know you are. You know who you are. If you're like, I have a feeling, I think it's time, and I have all the experience, I'm ready to monetize, then I encourage you to explore what that could look like. And y'all know I've been talking about this. If you want to start a digital course and you're listening to this in real time, Amy Porterfield has an incredible course creation bootcamp going on right now in the month of September 2021. So if you're listening to this in real time, go check it out. I'll have a link in the show notes. crystalprofit.com/episode 287. But that's where I advise people to start. Maybe you need to get started with affiliate marketing. Maybe you just want to baby step into it, but I want you to decide what is the next level. Maybe it's outsourcing. So I was recently on a call with a VA agency, a virtual assistant agency that I'm looking at working with, and I got really nervous and excited about it because I think it's fun to think about the idea of outsourcing and growing my team, but it also makes me nervous because y'all, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I didn't know this about myself until I've collaborated and worked with other project managers, content coordinators, different people throughout the span of my business. I've worked with many different people at this point. I'm a little bit of a control freak. And so the idea of outsourcing, I love it, but also it's the gamut of emotions. I'm like, oh, am I really going to be able to let this go? Will I really be able to fill in the blank, right? But I know in order to get to that next level, I have to start outsourcing. I have to start letting some things go so I can focus on the things that are going to make the biggest impact in my business. And then the last one, we already kind of talked about this, but creating products, services, memberships, whatever monetizing looks like for you to serve your audience. I'm not talking about creating products and stuff that aren't for your podcast audience, right? Why are you growing your podcast if you're not going to serve the people that are already listening to you? You have a built-in audience with your podcast. Serve those people. And if you're like, I don't even know how to get started, start surveying your people. If you're in our Facebook group, you know I recently put out a poll. I did this on LinkedIn as well. And I'm trying to understand what this next product, because I'm in content creation mode right now for a product that's going to help people that are ready to take their podcast to the next level. And I want to know what that looks like. I have an idea, but I want buy-in from people in my audience because I want to serve them. I don't want to create something that they're like, Crystal, we don't need that. We don't need that. We actually needed help with this, but you created something about that. Y'all, that's a waste of my time. That is a total waste of my time, and I really value my time. So I want to make sure that you're doing the same thing. So let me run through these again real fast. So the 3 questions, one more time, is it time? Is it experience? Or is it a feeling when it comes to taking your podcast to the next level? And then some of the ways that you can take your show to the next level is growing and scaling, guesting on other shows, monetizing, outsourcing, creating products, services, and memberships, and growing your team. So I'm going to have all of this in the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 287. But that's all I have for you today. If you've been thinking, I really do need to take things to the next level, I hope that this was the kick in the pants, right? The kick in the butt that you needed to get out of your comfort zone. Y'all, I'm not staying here. I'm leading by example. And that's, I think, why this episode today was a little uncomfortable for me to get started. Now, do you see how easily I slipped right into my comfort zone and my coaching zone? Because I know that you need to hear this because I needed to hear it. I needed to hear, Crystal, you're just playing easy. You're not taking big leaps. You're not taking risks anymore. You're just kind of gliding along the path that you've been, doing for the last few years. And it's time to get out of your comfort zone because, y'all, I've hit all of my major goals that I had for podcasting to speak on these stages that are so freaking incredible. And I feel so grateful, but it feels a little scary to hit those goals because now I'm like, what's next? What's next? Maybe your big dream was to just start your podcast and now you've done it and you're comfortable with it. Now you're like, I did the thing. I thought it was going to be impossible, but I did it. What's next? So I want you to think about that. Maybe you need to journal about it. Maybe you need to go and record a podcast episode about it. I don't know what you need to do in your own creative experience and how you process things, but I encourage you to ask, what's next? What's next in your podcast journey? But that's all I have for you today. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you are following the podcast wherever you're listening. I would love it if you would leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening to the podcast. Tell us what you loved about this episode. Tell me if you're ready. Just say, Crystal, I'm ready for the next level. or say, this was incredible. This blew my mind. I never thought about these things. Whatever you want to say. I read all of our reviews and I appreciate every single one of them. But that's all I have for you today. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.